After my consciousness settled into this new world, I found myself lying awake in a luxurious bedroom, my mind racing with the memories of both my past life and the tragic fate that awaited the body I now inhabited. James Warner, the infamous villain of this novel, whose life was destined to end in prison walls. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had become the very antagonist whose actions I had once judged while reading this story. The original James was born with a silver spoon, yet that spoon might as well have been made of tin considering how his family treated him. The Warner family tree had too many branches, and James was merely a convenient pawn in their game of corporate chess. They had married him off to Sophia Chen, the novel's protagonist, in a calculated move to strengthen their business empire. But James, fool that he was, had fallen desperately in love with his arranged bride, transforming from a simple pawn into an obsessive stalker who would eventually destroy himself. I couldn't help but scoff at his pathetic fate. Love-struck fools like him were worse than zombies. At least zombies had an excuse for their mindless behavior. My plan was simple: stay as far away from Sophia as possible and avoid the original James's tragic end. Yet fate, it seemed, had a sense of humor. As I made my way down to breakfast, hoping to begin implementing my Operation Avoid Destiny, I encountered her in the villa's dining room. Sophia Chen sat there in all her glory, looking every bit the female protagonist she was written to be. I offered a polite smile, the kind you'd give to a stranger in an elevator, but her response was a sneer that could curdle milk. "James," she spat my name like it was poison. "Do you find it amusing to harass me every single day? Even during breakfast, you have to trail behind me like a lost puppy?" Her words dripped with contempt, despite the fact that I had deliberately chosen a seat as far from her as the dining table would allow. A good 2 meters of expensive mahogany between us. I took a moment to study her, not as a lovesick fool, but as an objective observer. Yes, she was beautiful, the kind of beauty that graced magazine covers and launched 1,000 ships. Her figure was indeed exceptional, but her ugly expression marred it all. I had no interest in playing the role of a desperate suitor, especially to someone who clearly despised my very existence. "Would you prefer I skip breakfast entirely?" I responded dryly, shoveling another bite of the gourmet meal into my mouth. "There's only one dining room in this house, and believe it or not, I enjoy eating at normal breakfast hours like the rest of humanity." I savored each expensive morsel, knowing that after our inevitable divorce, such luxuries would be harder to come by, though the trade-off would be worth every penny. My practical response seemed to infuriate her further, and in a display of childish anger, she hurled her fork across the table, her aim suggesting she wouldn't have minded if it had found its mark in my eye. The silence between us stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Sophia stood there, arms crossed, her designer dress worth more than most people's monthly salary. She looked down at me with the kind of contempt usually reserved for insects. "James, your stubbornness is pointless," she declared, her voice dripping with disdain. "I feel nothing for you. This marriage was never meant to last." I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the expensive blend. "Actually, Sophia, I agree. Let's divorce." Her eyebrows shot up, but before she could savor her victory, I added, "Of course, I'll be taking half of everything." The shock on her face was almost comical, her perfect features twisted into a sneer. "James, you're truly pathetic. You think I care about money?" Her voice rose with emotion. "For David, I'd give up everything. My wealth, my status, even my life." Ah, David, the famous first love. Their story was legendary in the novel. Childhood sweethearts torn apart by family ambition. While David nursed his broken heart abroad, the original James had swooped in like a vulture, using every underhanded tactic to secure his position in the Chen family. He'd played the perfect son-in-law, winning over Sophia's mother and securing his place in their elite social circle, all while destroying David's chances. Looking at Sophia's passionate declaration, I felt an unexpected surge of admiration. "Well, well," I said softly, "you truly are noble, Sophia. Someone who views money as dirt and love as precious. Consider me touched. I'll step aside and let your love story bloom." With that, I rose from the table and walked away, leaving her frozen in confusion, probably questioning whether I'd been replaced by a body snatcher. The moment I was out of sight, I headed straight to the nearest luxury mall with Sophia's bank card burning a hole in my pocket. The original James had been such a fool, playing the devoted husband, pinching pennies to maintain some noble image while sitting on a gold mine. Well, I had different plans. I was in the middle of a much-needed spa treatment when my phone buzzed. Sophia's mother's name flashed across the screen. The old lady had always doted on me, showering me with both affection and money. It would be unfilial of me to ignore her call. "James, dear," her warm voice came through, "we're having a family banquet at the mansion today. Your presence is required." It wasn't a request. So much for my spa day. I arrived at the old mansion to find an unexpected scene. Sophia's mother presided over the gathering from the main seat, with Sophia on her left, but what caught my attention was the unfamiliar young woman seated on her right. Despite my better judgment, I took the seat next to Sophia, curious about this new player in our little drama. My attention was drawn to the young woman, studying her features until Sophia's mother's cheerful voice broke through my observations. "This is your aunt, Olivia. She just returned from abroad." I nearly choked on my tea. This girl looked no older than me, yet here I was, expected to call her aunt. "Please, just Olivia is fine," she interjected with an elegant wave of her hand. "I'm only 2 years older than Sophia." Her smile was genuine, a refreshing change from the usual tension-filled expressions I encountered in this family. "Hello, Olivia. I'm James, Sophia's husband." I offered a polite introduction, only to be cut off by Sophia's sharp voice. "Not for much longer," she interjected, causing both Olivia and her mother to gasp. I maintained my composure, explaining with calculated calmness, "Yes, Sophia wants a divorce. I've agreed." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Sophia's mother's face darkened with rage. "Absolutely not," she thundered. "James is such a good man. Sophia, what's wrong with you? Always talking about divorce." Sophia, ever the rebellious daughter, shot back, "I don't love him. Every day with him is torture." Her performance was worthy of an Oscar, though I noticed she conveniently forgot to mention David. I put on my best wounded expression, injecting just the right amount of resignation into my voice. When two people have no feelings for each other, forcing them together only prolongs the pain. If she wants to leave, I left the sentence hanging meaningfully. "Divorce? Over my dead body!" Sophia's mother slammed her hand on the table, making the fine china rattle. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just months ago, she would have opposed divorce with equal vehemence, but for entirely different reasons. Sophia's eyes welled with tears, though I couldn't tell if they were genuine or just for show. "Mom, please stop pushing me. Your emotional manipulation doesn't work anymore." "Oh? So your wings have hardened now?" Her mother's voice turned dangerously quiet. "Have you forgotten where you came from? Who shaped you into the heir of the Chen Group?" Her words carried years of control and manipulation, sharp as knives. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Sophia's mother, trembling with rage, grabbed her teacup and hurled it toward her daughter. Before I could process what was happening, my body moved on its own, some remnant of the original James's protective instincts, perhaps. I found myself shielding Sophia, the scalding tea soaking through my expensive shirt. The burning sensation across my back made me want to curse out loud. Sophia, the walking disaster magnet, had once again managed to put me in harm's way. This wasn't part of my plan to maintain a safe distance. The plot itself seemed determined to push us together. But if I had to suffer this indignity, I was definitely going to capitalize on it. After all, what's a little first-degree burn worth in terms of divorce settlement? Looking at Sophia's shocked face, I made a mental note to add compensation for bodily harm to my growing list of demands. This sacrifice had better be worth a significant bonus in our eventual settlement. Despite the searing pain across my back, I turned to Sophia with a carefully crafted expression of concern. "Are you all right? Please apologize to your mother. I'm sure she'll forgive you." The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but appearances had to be maintained. Shock flickered across Sophia's face before morphing into disgust. Then, without warning, she dropped to her knees. The action triggered memories of her past, memories I knew from the novel. Sophia was the illegitimate daughter, once an outsider, scorned by the family. She had clawed her way up from nothing, guided by her mother's calculating hands, until she'd outmaneuvered every other potential heir to the Chen Empire. "Mother!" Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. "I was wrong to anger you. I know what I am, a girl from nothing. You raised me, shaped me, gave me everything." Her voice hardened slightly. "I'll obey you in all things, Mother, except this. My marriage, this one choice, must be mine." Even kneeling, even with tears in her eyes, her resolve to divorce me remained unshaken. I had to admire her steel spine, even as I maintained my facade of the wounded, devoted husband. "James, are you all right?" Sophia's mother's voice cut through the tension. "Someone get a doctor immediately. Check his injuries." Her commanding tone had the household staff scrambling into action. The contrast between her concern for me and her earlier violence was almost comical. In the family clinic, as the doctor examined my burns, I could hear Sophia's mother's voice echoing through the halls. "You want a divorce? Fine. Then forfeit your position as heir. The Chen family won't have its future tainted by some worthless pretty boy. James is from a good family. He's devoted to you. Don't you understand how fortunate you are?" The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Here was this elderly woman, singing my praises, genuinely concerned for my well-being, while her precious daughter, the one I'd just taken a scalding for, couldn't care less if I lived or died. What kind of fool had the original James been, pining after such an ice queen? As I emerged from the clinic, Olivia caught my eye. Her gaze held a mixture of pity and curiosity. "You love her this much," she said softly. "Taking such pain for her. Is it really worth it?" I pressed my lips together, fighting back a sardonic laugh. If she only knew, this devoted love was nothing but a script I was forced to follow, a role I had to play until I could secure my escape with a generous settlement. The original James might have been willing to burn for Sophia's love, but I was only willing to burn for her money. I caught Olivia's sympathetic look and understood her misunderstanding. After all, my undying love for Sophia was infamous in our social circles. The tale had probably reached her even abroad. There was no point trying to correct the narrative now. Instead, I smiled weakly, deliberately adding, "Thank you for your concern, Aunt Olivia." As expected, her cheeks puffed up in annoyance at the aunt title. Even a woman as composed as her couldn't hide her displeasure at being aged up. "I just want Sophia to find happiness," she replied diplomatically, though her expression suggested she thought that happiness should have been with me. Meanwhile, Sophia remained on her knees in the living room, her determination unwavering. Little did everyone know, she wasn't just kneeling for divorce, she was kneeling for David, willing to sacrifice her position as the Chen Group's heir. I had to admire her resolve. Her love for David was the kind that moved mountains, the kind that made my impending divorce settlement look more achievable by the minute. The Chen Group's heir apparent was treating her inheritance like yesterday's newspaper, all for love. She knelt there until her body gave out, collapsing from exhaustion. Playing my part as the devoted husband, I rushed to her side, making a show of concerned attention. But then came the summons I'd been dreading. Sophia's mother called me to her study. "The Chen family has wronged you, James," she began, guilt lacing her voice. I quickly cut in with my best world-weary expression. "No one is at fault. Love cannot be forced." Then came the words that made my blood run cold. "Give it 3 more months. If Sophia hasn't changed her mind by then, I'll let her divorce you." My face must have betrayed my inner turmoil. This wasn't part of my plan. According to the novel's plot, these 3 months would be catastrophic. Sophia's mother would orchestrate an accident that would leave David sterile, a broken man. The original James had played accomplice to this cruelty, using it as leverage to keep Sophia trapped in their marriage. But karma had come full circle. After her mother's death, Sophia had uncovered everything and made sure James rotted in prison. I sat there, my mind racing. This wasn't just a plot twist, it was a death trap. One wrong move, and I'd end up sharing the original James's fate. The game had suddenly become much more dangerous. The pursuit of happiness has become my life's new compass. When I proposed a trip to find peace, I never expected Sophia's mother to not only agree, but also provide generous travel funds. There was a debt she felt her family owed me, one that weighed heavily on her conscience. But beneath her generosity, I saw a darker purpose forming. She intended to handle David herself while I was away. Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched this woman who, despite her flaws, had shown me genuine kindness. I couldn't bear to watch her descent into vengeance. "Mom," I pleaded, using the term that had become natural over the years. "It's been so long. I've let it all go. Maybe it's time you did too? There's no need to target David anymore." "Sweet child," she replied, her weathered face softening momentarily. "You always think of others, but like a bitter melon, some things can't be sweetened by force. Don't worry, I'll make these decisions so you won't have to." The steel in her eyes told me her mind was set, unmovable as a mountain. A chill ran down my spine. Just as freedom seemed within reach, David appeared. My first encounter with him since my mysterious arrival in this timeline. He stood there in a crisp white shirt and gold-rimmed glasses, every inch the perfect first love character from a romance novel. His immaculate appearance made it painfully clear why Sophia could never forget him. It was like watching a character walk straight out of the pages of a love story. David's voice was steady as he explained his presence. "I heard Sophia was ill." But before he could continue, Sophia's mother erupted with venom in her voice. "You dare step foot in my Sophia's house? You, who cavorts with mistresses and destroys families? Do the words integrity and shame mean anything to you?" I silently prayed he would retreat, spare us all the brewing storm. My presence alone, the designated villain in this tale, made any situation suspicious. But David surprised me with his unwavering resolve. "Sophia and I are simply friends," he declared with quiet dignity. "Your assumptions cheapen what we share. If you truly care for your daughter's well-being, you'll let me see her. A friend checking on a sick friend. There's nothing improper about that." Looking at them, I could see why David and Sophia had once been drawn to each other. Both possessed that same stubborn dedication to their principles, that same fierce loyalty to their emotions. But Sophia's mother, blinded by years of prejudice and pain, could see none of it. In response, she raised her cane, years of pent-up fury finding their target at last. The old lady's fury exploded as she confronted David. "Your so-called thoughtfulness? It's poison. Look what you've done to my daughter. She's risking her life because of you. Leave before you destroy her completely." But David remained unmoved, his spine straight as steel, neither flinching nor dodging as her cane struck his back repeatedly. His pristine white shirt slowly bloomed with crimson stains, yet he kept repeating like a mantra, "Let me see Sophia. She needs me. I must explain everything." He stood there like some tragic hero from a romance novel, martyring himself for love. I might have applauded his dedication if I weren't so terrified of the complications his presence created for me. Then came the sound we all dreaded, Sophia's footsteps. She'd heard his voice and dragged herself from her sickbed, her body weak but her eyes blazing. As she passed me, her glare could have frozen hell itself. I scrambled to defend myself. "Don't look at me like that. I had nothing to do with this. He came on his own. If anything, this chaos is because you encouraged him despite your mother's disapproval." She leaned close, her whisper sharp as a blade against my ear. "If I discover you had anything to do with this, you'll regret it deeply. Don't test me." Then she rushed to David, leaving me shivering. Such is the curse of being the designated villain. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. "David, is it really you?" Sophia's voice transformed, becoming tender and desperate. "I'm not dreaming, am I? I've needed you so much. Are you hurt? Let me hold you. It won't hurt anymore." She embraced him from behind, shielding him from her mother's cane, whispering words of devotion while David fought back tears. "Sophia," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. "We ended things." "No," she interrupted fiercely. "You did that to protect me. It means nothing. In my heart, we never separated. James means nothing to me. I've kept myself only for you, like jade waiting for its rightful owner." Their romantic reunion played out like a drama, force-feeding everyone present with their saccharine display, while simultaneously destroying my careful plans. The scene reached its climax when Sophia's mother collapsed, her cane clattering to the floor as rage overwhelmed her. The household erupted into chaos. Thank heaven for Olivia's quick thinking. She rushed the old lady to the hospital, likely saving her life. Sophia and David followed, united in their concern despite everything. I thought I'd seized my chance to escape, but Sophia had other plans. She dragged me to the hospital, her grip vice-like as she hissed, "Our business isn't finished. If you want a peaceful life after your divorce, you'll stay where I can see you. No sneaking around, no clever schemes." Her words carried the weight of a chain, binding me to her surveillance. Even now, she was determined to keep me under her thumb. Sophia's surveillance of me was ironically perfect. What better proof of my innocence than being constantly watched? Playing along, I adopted my most sincere tone. "Relax. I've completely given up on you and won't interfere with David anymore. I'll behave properly, even if just to secure my divorce settlement." She gave me a look of surprise that quickly morphed back into contempt. I couldn't resist pushing further, channeling my inner antagonist. "Think about it. If I catch you doing anything questionable, you won't see a penny, and things could get very unpleasant." I rolled my eyes dramatically, secretly amused at playing the role of the scheming villain. After all, I had my own exit strategy, a mountain of luxury goods stashed away, and a bank account that could fund several comfortable lifetimes. My real plan was simple: grab the money and disappear, staying far away from this nest of drama. But fate had other plans. Just as I was mentally mapping my escape route, Sophia's mother stirred awake. David, reading the room perfectly, made his silent exit. The look he exchanged with Sophia before leaving was straight out of a romance novel, deep, meaningful, and completely ignoring my existence. I silently thanked whatever cosmic force had prevented me from being the original owner of this body. Those two would have driven me to madness. Sophia remained lost in David's direction long after he'd vanished down the hospital corridor, only snapping back to reality when her mother demanded attention. "Mom, you're awake," she said softly. But her mother's response was arctic. "Thanks to you, I haven't died of rage yet." The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. Sophia immediately dropped to her knees in apology, but her mother waved it away with surprising casualness. "Get up. I'll agree to your divorce from James." The words hit like a bombshell. Sophia's face lit up with such hope that I could practically see her mentally planning her victory celebration. But then came the twist. "I have one condition," her mother announced, and Sophia practically tripped over herself agreeing before even hearing it. "Anything, Mom. Just name it." "There will be a 3-month cooling-off period," her mother declared, each word deliberate and heavy with meaning. "You and James will remain together. If you still want the divorce after that." I could practically see the schemes forming behind her eyes. 3 months would give her plenty of time to eliminate David from the equation. Sophia's response was immediate and fierce. "I'll always want the divorce. This is just wasting time." She shot me a venomous look, as if I'd orchestrated the whole thing. I quickly raised my hands in surrender. "Hey, don't look at me. This wasn't my idea." "Don't pin this on her," Sophia's mother interjected, defending me. "The 3-month condition was my idea." Sophia's response was immediate, though tinged with frustration. "Fine. I meant what I said. I'll do anything for this divorce. 3 more months won't kill me." She punctuated her words with a glare in my direction, but I was beyond caring about her theatrics. My airline ticket was already booked, my escape plan in motion. Without evidence against me, she had no choice but to let me go. What I hadn't expected was Olivia seeing me off at the airport. After 2 glasses of wine, her cheeks were flushed pink, giving her an endearing quality I hadn't noticed before. She studied me with gentle eyes, asking, "Are you really sure about ending things with Sophia?" "What else can I do?" I replied, watching the crowds rush past. "Keep playing this game of emotional warfare? Life's too long to waste on the wrong people." Olivia's approval came with a thumbs up, and I found myself warming to her. "I admire you, you know. Your ability to handle all this, to just let go." As I stood to leave, Olivia caught my arm. "Come back in 3 months," she said, her voice carrying an unexpected weight. "Half of the family assets. You deserve them." Her words sent a thrill of excitement through me. Why so confident I'll get anything? "Sophia may not keep promises, but I'll make sure you get what's yours in the divorce settlement." The confidence in Olivia's expression suggested she held cards I couldn't see. Intrigued, I had to ask, "Why help an outsider against your own niece?" Her response came with a carefree smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let's just say Sophia's stubbornness needs refinement. She's difficult to work with." As she walked away, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for Sophia, trapped between her controlling mother and an aunt with mysterious motives. But ultimately, it wasn't my problem. I had my sights set on bigger dreams, a life of freedom, traveling the world as I'd always wanted. Paris was to be my final destination, the city of romance and new beginnings. I planned to scout it thoroughly. If it lived up to its reputation, it would become my home after the divorce was finalized. My perfect plan, however, came crashing down with one phone call. Seeing Sophia's name on my screen, I almost ignored it. But with the divorce settlement hanging in the balance, I couldn't afford to. Her words cut through my carefully constructed escape. "Get back immediately. Mom is critically ill." Sophia's message was terse. All command, no explanation. Despite my irritation at her tone, I couldn't refuse. Sophia's mother, whatever her flaws, had shown me real kindness. I owed her at least this much. But fate had other plans. By the time I reached the hospital, she was already gone. I'd missed my chance to say goodbye. Kneeling beside her bed, my tears weren't for show. Regret washed over me in waves. If only she hadn't been so consumed by Sophia's drama. If only she'd worried less about controlling her daughter's life. Perhaps her body wouldn't have given out so suddenly. But if onlys are worth nothing to the dead. After the funeral, Sophia wasted no time pursuing our divorce. Without her mother's opposition, everything moved with shocking speed. True to her word, she split the assets equally, though I suspected Olivia's invisible hand in that generosity. The ink was barely dry on our divorce certificate when Sophia and David marched off to get their own marriage license. The civil servant's judgmental look spoke volumes. Here was another story of infidelity and broken homes. Sophia and David turned to me, clearly hoping I'd clear their names, but I was done playing nice. With the money secured, why bother? I was practically dancing out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, divorce certificate clutched in hand like a trophy, when I spotted Olivia. Her joy matched mine, maybe even exceeded it. "Happy Divorce Day," she beamed. "Let's celebrate." From anyone else, it would have seemed cruel, but Olivia's warmth was genuine. How could I refuse? The celebration dinner flowed as freely as the wine, and soon we were both pleasantly drunk. As I helped Olivia back to her room, she started murmuring, her usual composure slipping. "James, do you know? You were my first love." I patted her cheek gently, trying to break through the alcohol haze. "Hey, do you even know who you're talking to right now?" "Of course I do," she pouted, suddenly seeming decades younger. "I've liked you since school, but you only had eyes for Sophia. Never even noticed me." Her voice carried years of buried hurt, the dignified aunt persona completely forgotten. A thought struck me. I was divorced now. The whole elder dynamic was meaningless. So I decided to play along. Well, I must have been blind back then. If I could do it all over, I'd definitely notice such a beautiful woman. Beautiful? Really? Olivia's coy smile and flirtatious glance transformed her face, making her radiant with joy. My heart thundered in my chest as my gaze traced Olivia's silhouette. Her black dress was a masterpiece of understatement, clinging perfectly to her slender frame. I found myself swallowing hard before managing to say, "You're beautiful. I'm completely enchanted." "Less talk, more action," Olivia whispered, closing the distance between us with a kiss. How could anyone resist? That night unfolded like a dream, but morning brought reality rushing back. I woke alone in Olivia's villa, only to find myself surrounded by a parade of servants, all carrying fresh clothes and offering assistance. The realization hit me. This was Olivia's world, complete with a small army of staff managing her luxurious estate. "Where is she?" I asked, trying to keep the nervousness from my voice. "Miss Olivia has left for work," the head maid explained softly. "She instructed us to attend to you." I couldn't help noticing that each maid seemed carefully selected for their beauty, their uniforms designed to draw attention. Something felt off about the whole situation. "Stop," I said abruptly, holding up a hand. "I prefer to handle things myself." Their disappointed faces as they filed out only heightened my unease. Then Olivia appeared in the doorway, wearing an amused smile. "Well done, James. You passed the test. Resisting temptation. What a gentleman." Her approving tone made my blood run cold. I'd narrowly avoided walking into a trap, and suddenly, Olivia's power became crystal clear. She was playing in a different league than Sophia. I tried to play it cool. "None of them compare to you anyway." It seemed like the safe response after our night together. "Then marry me." 3 words, delivered with casual confidence as she produced a ring box from nowhere. I froze, mind racing. A wealthy heiress proposing after one night? It was like something from a romance novel, but I'd already lived through one controlling marriage. The thought of being another powerful woman's trophy husband made my skin crawl. "Olivia, this is too sudden. I need time to think," I managed, trying to keep my voice gentle. Her response was surprisingly understanding. "Of course, it's moving fast. Your hesitation is natural. I'll wait, but don't make me wait too long." As she tucked away the ring box, I felt myself breathe again. Time to execute my escape plan. Paris was calling. The city lived up to its romantic reputation. Here, people understood the art of living, so different from the grinding pressure of China's first-tier cities. I planned to lose myself in this new lifestyle, but fate had other plans. At a tourist hotspot, I literally collided with the last people I wanted to see: Sophia and David, fresh from their honeymoon. Their faces darkened at the sight of me, hatred radiating off them in waves. David's fists clenched, his knuckles white. "You cost Sophia her CEO position, you snake!" He lunged forward, but I danced backward, keeping a safe distance. Of all the tourists in Paris, I had to run into the protagonists of my personal drama. Their perfect honeymoon moment, ruined by my mere existence. "Hold on," I couldn't help but snap. "She lost that position because she chose to divorce me for you. Don't pin that on me." I turned to leave, but Sophia's grip on my arm stopped me cold. "Was it all just for the divorce settlement?" she demanded. I almost nodded, almost threw her disdain back in her face. But something stopped me, a memory of the body's original owner, of love turned to ashes. For his sake, I chose a different path. "Sophia, what we had was real, once, but your constant contempt wore it away piece by piece. Now, I just want my settlement and peace. Surely your conscience can grant me that much." I drew myself up, channeling old money confidence. "Besides, coming from 3 generations of wealth, your settlement is hardly life-changing for me." I wielded my family background like a shield, knowing she couldn't verify the complicated truth, that my family's indifference matched hers, that they'd step over my corpse if it didn't affect the G family's bottom line. Sophia had never bothered to learn about my life, my reality. Her ignorance was my armor. David scoffed, his voice dripping with scorn. "What are you so proud of? You're just playing at being rich. Your family won't give you a cent." If only he knew how right he was, for all the wrong reasons. "You'll never find anyone like Sophia," David sneered, and I had to laugh. My romantic rival somehow understood me better than my ex-wife ever did. Still, I kept my composure, firing back. "However humble my background, at least I'm not you. Keep treating Sophia like your treasure. May you have a beautiful baby soon, but my life is no longer your concern." I couldn't resist twisting the knife. Besides, I've got a wealthy heiress proposing to me already. Can't help it if my face attracts the ladies. Try not to be too jealous. My words hit home. David's face contorted with rage as he lunged at me again. But I'd learned my lessons well. One smooth sidestep, and he missed completely. Sophia grabbed his arm, hissing, "Ignore him. We're here for our honeymoon. This tacky place isn't even worth our time. Just our luck to run into him." I watched with fascination as David's perfect first love facade crumbled, revealing something far less romantic underneath. How different from the noble figure who'd taken those cane blows for love. Sophia's face tightened at his complaints, but her attention snapped back to me. "A wealthy heiress proposed? You're lying, aren't you?" "Why do you even care?" David whined, his tone petulant. "He's obviously making it up." I observed their interaction like a theater critic watching a tragedy unfold. The magic of first love clearly hadn't survived reality's harsh light. With Sophia stripped of her inheritance and CEO position, she'd become a fallen princess. And David, facing the prospect of supporting her lavish tastes on his modest means, was showing his true colors. I'd bet my divorce settlement their marriage wouldn't last the year. The thought brought me more satisfaction than it probably should have, but David wouldn't let it go. "Who is this supposed heiress? You can't even say her name, can you? Just another one of your lies." Sophia leaned forward, equally eager to catch me in a lie. I found myself trapped. Mentioning Olivia felt premature when I hadn't even accepted her proposal. But just as the silence stretched to breaking point, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "I'm the one who proposed to him." Olivia's voice rang clear and confident. "Is there a problem with that?" All heads turned to find Olivia standing there, looking every inch the powerful heiress she was. The Tigers had found their match. The tension in the room was palpable, as Olivia's words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. David stood frozen, his usual eloquence deserting him in the face of this unexpected declaration. I watched the scene unfold, my own disbelief mirrored in Sophia's widening eyes. Despite being only 2 years Sophia's senior, Olivia carried herself with the polish and poise of someone who had mastered the art of aging gracefully. Her carefully maintained appearance made her look remarkably younger than her niece, a fact she wielded like a weapon. "Aunt, you actually have feelings for my husband?" Sophia's voice trembled with indignation. "Have you no shame?" Olivia's response came with a glacial smile, her words dripping with calculated venom. "Your husband?" She let out a dismissive laugh. "He's already divorced you. What you've discarded, I see as a treasure." Her eyes narrowed. "And speaking of shame, shall we discuss your behavior during your marriage? The flirting, the emotional infidelity, the behavioral cheating. Where was your sense of shame then?" The accusations left Sophia speechless, her face draining of color. The power dynamic shifted palpably as Olivia towered over her niece, weaponizing her status as an elder with barely concealed satisfaction. Sophia's fingers curled into tight fists, her humiliation evident in her rigid posture. David's voice cut through the tension like a whip. "Why are you just standing there?" His tone was cruel with newfound authority. "Address him as uncle, or have you forgotten about your family's living expenses?" Trapped in this web of dependency and dignity, Sophia approached me, her voice barely a whisper. "Uncle, what was that? I couldn't quite hear you," I said, playing my part in this cruel theater. "Uncle!" Sophia's voice cracked as she forced the word out louder, each syllable a shard of her shattered pride. "That's better, my dear niece," I responded, satisfaction coloring my tone. Sophia retreated, her face ashen, practically dragging David away with her. As their footsteps faded, the atmosphere transformed. Alone with Olivia, the air crackled with a different kind of tension, electric, magnetic. "Why did you come?" I asked, though the void in my heart had already been filled by her presence. The realization struck me with crystal clarity. I had fallen for her. "To protect you, silly," she replied with a playful wink, her earlier Ice Queen persona melting away. I reached out, running my fingers through her hair. "Fool, I should be the one protecting you." She melted into my embrace, her body soft and yielding. "Then I'll wait for my husband to protect me," she murmured. "Husband?" I affected an arrogant tone, even as my arms tightened around her waist. "I haven't accepted your proposal yet." Our lips met in a kiss that spoke volumes, her breath catching as she whispered against my ear. "You've already fallen for me. You'll be mine eventually." I took control then, leading her toward the nearby hotel. "I may have fallen for you," I conceded, "but everything still depends on your performance. If you dare seduce anyone else, I'll keep you locked away at home." I teased her playfully, watching as she melted into the suggestion with a dreamy smile. That moment felt like yesterday, yet here we were, Olivia and I celebrating our extravagant wedding in the aftermath of our Paris romance. The venue buzzed with an unexpected crowd, including family members I hadn't seen in what felt like centuries, all suddenly eager to curry favor. As I stood there bewildered, not recalling sending invitations to half these faces, Olivia leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. "I invited them," she whispered, her voice filled with purpose. "It's the first step in helping you reclaim your family's inheritance rights." Overwhelmed with emotion, I pulled her into a spontaneous kiss. "Thank you, Olivia." "Why so formal?" she responded, a blush painting her cheeks. "We haven't even reached the kissing portion of the ceremony yet, though I can hardly wait for our wedding night." I whispered words of love into her ear, and she softly replied, "James, just be patient a little longer." The wedding was every bit as grand as she'd planned, though the endless ceremonies tested my patience. Initially, I thought all this pomp was merely for show, but seeing the joy radiating from my wife's face made every tedious moment worthwhile. During a brief interlude while Olivia changed into her formal attire, I spotted Sophia in the crowd. She stood alone, David notably absent, her appearance haggard and worn. I deliberately avoided eye contact, not wanting to give Olivia any reason to doubt my devotion on our special day. But Sophia had other plans. She approached me directly, reaching for my arm with desperate fingers. I jerked away from her touch, my voice sharp with anger. "What do you think you're doing?" "James, David and I are over," she blurted out, clutching her chest as if in pain. I met her declaration with cold indifference. "And how is that my concern?" She launched into a rambling explanation about their time in Paris, her voice tinged with regret. "You probably guessed it. Our relationship wasn't what we thought. What seemed precious when unattainable proved disappointing once obtained. We didn't love each other as much as we believed. Separation was inevitable." "Sophia," I cut her off sharply, "is my wedding really the appropriate place for this conversation?" Her face flushed with embarrassment, realizing the impropriety of her timing. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make a confession. But I had already turned away, my thoughts returning to Olivia and our celebration. This was our day, and I wouldn't let shadows from the past dim its brightness. I must have blacked out from happiness, I mused to myself, before turning to Sophia with stern resolution. "You need to respect yourself, Sophia. Don't speak about my relationship with Olivia. There's no comparison between what we had and what I have now." "Why?" Sophia's voice rose sharply, drawing the attention of every guest. "Are you saying your feelings are somehow more noble than ours?" Through the crowd's murmurs, I spotted David, his unwelcome presence at my wedding like a bad omen. Before he could approach, I signaled the security personnel. David's protests echoed across the hall. "I'm just here for Sophia." "Then you can both leave together," I said coldly, gesturing for security to remove them both. As they were escorted out, their voices carried their usual toxic exchange. "Sophia, what are you doing here? We're done," David spat. "Stop following me." "You're the one who's haunting me," Sophia screamed back. "Who gave you permission to chase after your ex-husband?" I shook my head, watching their retreat. It was the same old drama, the same tired performance. The leading man and lady, locked in their eternal dance of love and hatred, mindlessly playing out their roles. But I was no longer a supporting character in their story. I had found my own narrative, my own happiness. Looking around at my wedding celebration, at Olivia's radiant smile, I realized that true contentment comes not from grand dramatic gestures or complicated relationships, but from simply living well and loving deeply. In choosing to step away from their drama and create my own story with Olivia, I had finally found my path to genuine happiness.